My name is Brandon Holman, and this is DOT Hazmat Security Awareness Training provided by Corbin Health Physics. This training is intended for those that work in nuclear medicine, particularly the nuclear medicine technologists. Here is a list of items that we will be reviewing as part of this training. We will spend most of our time discussing packaging, labeling, and shipping, as it is important to understand how to package the material, what labels are used, and proper annotations, and the importance of shipping papers and shipping the package. The last two items that you see here are especially important in performing your job in nuclear medicine. Hazmat Security Awareness Training is required for those individuals that are assigned to a hazmat duty. How individuals that work in nuclear medicine fall into this category is the handling of radioactive material. Initially, the training must be conducted within 90 days of an individual's employment, and then 3 years after that. The training must include general awareness and familiarization. It must also be specific to your job, and it must include security awareness and safety training. Although safety is discussed in this presentation, not much is focused on radiation safety. However, radiation safety training is usually provided separately to nuclear medicine technologists, as it is an annual requirement, and Corbin Health Physics provides this annually. Please note that it is required that a test be given following hazmat training. So at the end of this presentation, please follow the instructions given so we can ensure you get the correct documentation. Although it is important to be compliant with this training every 3 years, this training is also important as it reminds those that work in nuclear medicine of their role and the role of others around the department when it comes to the shipping process of radioactive material. When we understand this role and do it properly, we can avoid monetary penalties for violating HMR, hazardous materials regulations. Examples of civil and criminal penalties can be found in 49 CFR 107 Subpart D. Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations governs the transport of hazardous material. Enforcement depends on mode of transportation, either by road, rail, air, or water. Title 10 governs the packaging and transportation of licensed radioactive material. Although transportation of radioactive material is not part of our hazmat duty, it is beneficial to understand the modes of transportation on the few occasions a solid source needs to be packaged and sent back to the manufacturer. The process can run smooth if we understand all the steps in packaging, labeling, and shipping. Now before we continue, here is a brief review on some quantities and units that we typically deal with when handling or preparing radioactive material for shipment. Although the units that are typically seen on a daily basis are millicuries, the basic conversion from curie to becquerels is important to understand, especially if your site is licensed for Y90 therapies. It is also good to have a basic understanding of rem and sieverts, as these units deal with biological effect. There are several classes when referring to hazardous material. The class for radioactive material is Class 7. To complicate things even more, Class 7 has several classifications. However, only one can be used when packaging radioactive material. Here are some examples of classifications. The last three, Type B, LSA, and SCO, are classifications you probably will not have to deal with. The first two, exempt and limited quantities, are ones you see most often with incoming and outgoing radiopharmaceutical cases. And Type A is what you will see depicted on the radiopharmaceutical cases and the boxes used to ship and receive your various sealed sources. The following are some examples of proper shipping name and hazardous class. The one that you see on a daily basis is the UN 2910, as this is what is depicted on the laminated card that is flipped for outgoing packages back to the pharmacy. When it comes to packaging radioactive material, the packages must meet design and construction criteria listed in Title 49 in the Code of Federal Regulations. Unfortunately, you're not able just to use any box found at home or in the department. The criteria specifies that the box must not only be tested, but USA DOT 7A Type A must be on the box. If you do not have a box with this criteria when shipping back a solid source to the manufacturer can usually send you one upon request. There are some containers that can be used as long as they are approved DOT 7A Type A. There are specific ammo cans and soft pharmaceutical containers that you typically see daily in your department. When it comes to packaging safety, There are steps that need to be followed prior to opening a package or sending a package that contains radioactive material. These steps, or measurements, should be familiar as these are performed for incoming and outgoing packages received from the pharmacy. The external exposure limit at the surface of the package is 200 mg per hour. After the surface measurement, you will take a measurement at 1 meter from the package, also known as the transport index, and this measurement is limited to 10 millirem per hour. Most of the meters we use measure in mR per hour, milliroentgen. However, for gamma radiation, millirem and mR are roughly equivalent. An important measurement that is often missed or misunderstood is surface contamination. This must be performed with an absorbent wipe or swab and must cover at least 300 centimeters squared. And as you can see, that is a pretty small area. Once the wipe is measured, usually with a well counter, the wipe cannot exceed 240 disintegrations per centimeter squared, as shown here. And since the wiping area is 300 square centimeters, the actual contamination has to be less than 300 times 240, or 72,000 disintegrations per minute. Now you don't have a meter that reads in DPMs, so we have done an example calculation for you to show you how you can determine your detection limit. The first thing to consider is wiping efficiency. Now the efficiency of the wipe is not that great, it is about 10%. So we assume a 10% wiping efficiency, and then you are going to look up the counting efficiency for your specific well counter with the isotope you're looking for. Let me give you an example. This particular Capintec well counter has a 68% counting efficiency when looking at Tech99 metastable. So if our isotope in question for surface contamination is Tech99 metastable, we would include this counting efficiency in our calculation. And the counting efficiency provided will be in counts per minute per disintegrations per minute. So we have our wiping area, our wiping efficiency, and our counting efficiency. And this gives us 4,896 counts per minute. So as long as your wipe is below this limit, you are within surface contamination limits for packages. Now this is of course when looking at Tech99 metastable and knowing the counting efficiency for the example well counter. If you are unsure how to determine the efficiency for your specific well counter, please consult your medical physicist and they can help you find it. If your facility is in Washington State, the Department of Health has allowed survey meters with a pancake probe to be used for measuring the wipe if a well counter is not available. However, the counting efficiency of a pancake probe is much lower than a well counter, meaning that if there is any distinguishable activity above background on the wipe when counting with the pancake probe, the contamination on the package is likely above the surface contamination limit. We strongly encourage any sites that do not already have a well counter to consider getting one in order to improve their contamination detection capabilities. After the exposure limits have been determined and a wipe has been performed and is below surface contamination limits, we now move on to labeling. This chart depicts what label categories should be used based on your surface and TI transport index measurements. Usually your surface measurement and TI measurement will coincide with each other, giving you the same label category. But on the rare occasions, they are different when one measurement is giving you a higher label category than the other. In this case, the higher label category should be chosen. Here are examples of a white 1, yellow 2, and yellow 3 label that would be seen on a radioactive material package being received or shipped. After you determine the appropriate label, make sure that you have at least 2 of these labels, as they need to be on opposite sides of each other on the package. If only one is present, or they are not on opposite sides of each other, or if even one of the labels happens to wrap around the corner of the package, even slightly, the shipper will not accept it and send it back your way. Next, make sure you have the appropriate annotation on the label, the radioisotope under contents, the activity and becquerels and millicuries, and your determined TI. Now, when documenting the TI on the label, ensure it is only to one significant figure. For example, if you measure 0.19 millirem per hour when determining your TI, it should be written as 0.2 on the label. If you have more than one significant figure, the shipper will return the package and ask you to relabel. Now, your package does not need a label category with all the annotations if it meets certain conditions. This is known as limited quantities. This is normally what is seen when shipping back a radiopharmaceutical package, the laminated card you usually flip before it is picked up. It must be marked with the appropriate ID number, usually a 2910. Surface exposure needs to be low, and the package must be wiped and be below 240 disintegrations per minute per centimeter squared. The basic rule for shipping papers is that if you transport any quantity of hazardous material, a properly prepared shipping paper must accompany the shipment and must include the items shown on this slide. Unless the package is exempt, like the pharmaceutical package shipped back, each person who offers a hazardous material for transportation must accurately describe the hazardous material on the shipping paper in the manner required by the HMR. 3 copies of the shipper's declaration for dangerous goods must be completed and must describe the contents completely and must have the shipper's information. A more thorough example of this document can be found on the FedEx website. To find these documents online, copy the links provided, or Google FedEx Dangerous Goods Checklist for a radioactive shipment 2018. Each person who offers any radioactive material for transportation aboard a passenger-carrying aircraft shall sign a printed certificate stating that the shipment contains radioactive material intended for use in or incident to research or medical diagnosis or treatment. When documenting the emergency response telephone number on the shipping papers, make sure the number is for an individual who is knowledgeable about the hazardous material being shipped and has comprehensive emergency response and incident mitigation information. The individual must be available at all times the hazardous material is in transportation, including storage incidental to the transportation. Please note that this person may be called in a non-emergency situation to check if they are available, even after the package has reached its destination. The shipper must keep a copy of the shipping papers, either electronically or hard copy, for 2 years after the material is accepted by the initial carrier. The carrier must keep a copy of the shipping papers for 1 year after initial acceptance. However, both the shipper and the carrier must keep a copy of the hazardous waste manifest for 3 years after it is accepted by the initial carrier. Whew. These different retention periods can get confusing. The best way to comply with all these rules is to keep all documents pertaining to shipping for at least 3 years. In all cases, a copy must be accessible at or available through the principal place of business of the shipper and the carrier, respectively, and must be made available if requested by an authorized federal, state, or local agency at reasonable times and locations. There are several different companies that will ship radioactive material. However, each one has stipulations on what they will ship or where they will ship it. It is recommended that you contact the carrier prior to your selection to see if they suit your particular need. When there are the rare occasions of accidents and the hazardous material is the cause, the event must be reported if one of the following occur. Now, you would report most of these events in any accidental situation, but if the hazardous material is not the cause of the accident or doesn't have any effect on the accident, meaning the accident doesn't directly involve the hazardous material, the hazardous material does not need to be included in the report. If the hazardous material is the cause, or certain events occur, fire, spillage, that involve the hazardous material, radioactive material, or infectious substance, a telephone report is required. The other times a telephone report is appropriate is purely your judgment, even if it doesn't meet the criteria as specified previously. If you believe that there is danger to someone or something due to the hazardous material, report it to the NRC. Placarding is one of those items where you shouldn't have any direct involvement as an occupational lab worker in nuclear medicine. However, I have added this slide for some general understanding. And really, in most cases, placarding is not required for the radioactive material that you ship or receive. It is only required for a labeled yellow 3 package. These last remaining slides are not only important for your hazmat training in regards to shipping and receiving, they should also be familiar as they should be performed and carried out daily. Safety is an essential item in performing your job effectively, efficiently, and hopefully without incidents. These lists of items should be followed when receiving a shipment of radioactive material. Gloves should always be the first thing when handling any kind of radioactive material. When you receive the package, ensure that a visual inspection is performed. If significantly damaged, quickly check the exposure rate at 1 meter. Isolate the package if the rate exceeds 10 mR per hour. Ensure exposure rates are measured from 1 meter and at the package surface. If the 1 meter rate exceeds 10 mR per hour, or if the surface rate exceeds 200 mR per hour, stop the procedure and notify the RSO or Deputy RSO. The RSO must report each such incident to the Department of Health's Division of Radiation Protection.
Remember to perform a wipe test, as this test is commonly missed. Please ensure that the package exterior is wiped, and if removable contamination exceeds 240 dpm per centimeter squared over a 300 centimeter squared wipe area, notify the RSO, who must report it to the DOH.
On the outside of the package, verify that there is a packing slip, and also verify the packing slip is in agreement with its contents. Once you are able to open the package, visually inspect the inner shielded container and place it in the appropriate storage area. If this is a package that is being discarded, survey the packaging materials. If contaminated, treat as radioactive waste. If not contaminated, obliterate radiation labels before disposal. Finally, ensure that the package is documented. You should have a form titled Radioactive Material Receipt, Use, and Disposal Log, or something similar. Use this form to document the package check-in procedure. Most, if not all, radiopharmaceutical packages that are returned end up being exempt, where there is no need for all the extra paperwork. However, as a reminder, a survey is still required along with a wipe for contamination. The appropriate label, UN 2910 for limited quantity, is usually provided. And the nicest thing of all, no shipping papers for exempt packages. Finally, let's discuss security. Security awareness plays a vital role in not only securing the safety for your department, but the safety for others as well. First, ensure your department and the facility have a security plan, because one of the biggest fears is stolen radioactive material, as it can be weapons for terrorists. Terror threats can come from within the hospital or clinic. Have a plan set in place to protect the radioactive material, the patients, co-workers, and of course yourself. When questioned about the location or transportation of radioactive material, know the person asking and ensure he or she has a need-to-know basis. Don't be afraid to question someone or ask for identification if you haven't seen them in the department, even if they claim to be someone important, such as the DOH. Don't be afraid to take ownership of your department. They should understand that you are just doing your job. Keep radioactive material under lock and key and ensure delivery personnel are delivering in the correct location. And if you observe suspicious activity, contact security right away. Keep radioactive material in the proper locations and never leave rad material unattended. In the case of lost or stolen radioactive material, report it to the NRC. Here's a brief recap of what was covered in this Hazmat DOT Security Awareness Training. If you have questions on any of the covered items, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Thank you for allowing me to provide you with this training. Again, if you have any questions or concerns on what was covered in this training, please email us at info@corwinhp.com. Or you can also visit us at www.corwinhp.com and reach out to us through the Contact tab. If you visit us online, you will see that Corwin Health Physics provides comprehensive medical physics services for all imaging modalities throughout the Pacific Northwest. We can assist you in evaluating all of the following and more. Contact us for more information. Thank you.